You are now listening to the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast.
Wait, the answer was add 10 gallons?
Add 10 gallons.
My first thought was we got to put Acti-Gel in it.
Yeah, great.
Truck's on the way. On the way.
Yeah, okay. I've got two observations, neither of which are really educated or well thought out. Which are like most of my observations are.
There aren't a lot of problems on a job site that can't be solved with a sack full of biscuits.
Today's episode of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast is brought to you by Acti-Gel 208. Acti-Gel 208 is a high-performance additive for the concrete industry that is greatly beneficial to the producer. It enables them to increase the percentage of manufactured sand by up to 100% and completely replace all the natural sand in the mix. In areas where natural sand is scarce, inconsistent, and expensive, this provides a huge benefit to any ready-mix company out there. Benefits of manufactured sand and concrete include consistent air content, improved compaction, and increased density. Now, in the past, the downside of using manufactured sands was that they were hard to pump, hard to place, and hard to finish. Well, Acti-Gel 208 solves all those issues. By improving suspension, stability, and the quality of the cement paste in the mix, Acti-Gel overcomes the old issues with manufactured sand and leaves them behind. Let Acti-Gel 208 improve the quality of your mix while saving money on every yard you produce. For more information, visit us at actigel.com. That's ACTI-GEL.com.
All right, everybody, we're back. The first podcast of the new year here with the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. We're joined with the boys as always. Paul, how's it going?
Fantastic to be in front of this microphone with you.
All right, Joey?
I'm good, man.
Good. Well, we're coming to you here in January. It is the first podcast of the new year and our 12th. We've made it to a dozen total, and we appreciate you guys being with us. Last time we talked to you guys, it was before Christmas in the holiday season. How was it for you? How was Becca's Christmas, Paul?
Santa bought every toy in Target, delivered it under my tree, and I still don't think we've opened everything. So it was awesome.
That's what it's all about, man. It's all about. Joey, I mean, you really haven't had to put on your Santa hat yet since Jolene's not even a year old yet. But how was your first Christmas as a dad?
It was good. You know, she's not old enough to know anything about Christmas, but it was still cool, you know, having her there. And we did stockings. We didn't have a big Christmas, but we had some family over. We had about a dozen people over for Christmas, so we had a big gathering there and a big feast. So it was all good. Yeah,
right on. I mean, we didn't do any traveling. I have a huge family, and we were missing a good bit of them this year. But I did have I had some Arkansas folk come up, and one aunt from Texas. But usually it's like 5, 6 from Texas, a handful from Virginia, Arkansas folk, and all that stuff.
And they all come to your house?
No, we typically do breakfast at my grandmother's house. And then we have a family gathering about 2 miles up the road at one of my cousin's places, and usually that gets rowdy. Usually the afternoon gathering has about 40 to 50 people.
It gets real Arkansas up in there.
It does. It does, and we have like a gift exchange game that we play, and we sing the 12 Days of Christmas as a group. Mm-hmm. And that gets, because we like split the groups up into like different families, mm-hmm. and out of the 12 things, like each group, if we have 6 groups, like each group sings 12 individually, then we all sing 5 golden rings as a group. Mm-hmm. And it sounds kind of cheesy, and it is. Don't get me wrong.
That's all right, though.
It sounds cheesy.
That's what traditions are. Traditions are cheesy.
It's cheesy, but it's fun. It's pretty fun.
Hey, I hung out with one couple one night over the break. We actually went over to their place. They had a new house, and they had ordered the Trans-Siberian Orchestra because the guy there, he likes to go and see them live, but they're not doing any live concerts because of COVID. So they're doing a live concert over a live stream. And so he ordered that, went over there to go check it out. And speaking of traditions, though, the wife is Jewish. So he's like working through that whole process or whatever. And
basically they take the whole month off.
So for Hanukkah, her family and they were exchanging presents secretly. And he goes, "Yeah, we did Secret Santa." She's like, no, it's not Secret Santa. We're Jewish. I was like, well, explain to me the process. It was Secret Santa. So at least you may have some cheesy customs, but at least you're not trying to rebrand the same thing that already exists.
Yeah. We do a gift exchange where everybody in the group just like draws each other's names out of the hat, and instead of like feeling like you have to get gifts for X amount of people, you have to get gift for one person, whoever's name you drew. And we started doing Dirty Christmas or White Elephant or whatever you want to call it several years ago, and that always gets good because some people will bring wine, some people bring food stuff, and some people will bring like outrageous, crazy stuff. My gift this year that I submitted for Dirty Christmas was a People of Walmart 365-day calendar. So that was a pretty good winner. And let's see what else was in there. There was the jelly beans that are like weird flavors or whatever. Well, somebody submitted like a little game, but it was like super hot. They had like ghost pepper, habanero jelly beans, and you spun a wheel and you had to pick, whatever jelly bean you landed on. And so yeah, that's our Christmas tradition.
Yeah, when I talk about our gift exchange game, that's what I'm talking about.
Like a Dirty Santa type of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
White Elephant, Chinese gift exchange, Dirty Santa. Like there's 1,000 names for it. It's all the same concept. Usually ours consists of a lot of the gifts are alcohol related. There's lottery tickets in a lot of the games, and then sometimes there'll be like just the worst gift ever, like a coffee mug or something like that. But there'll be like a $50 bill in it.
Ooh,
so
yeah. Gotta watch out. Okay, so I had a really big family too. We don't get together anymore, but when I was growing up, we all did. My dad has 11 brothers and sisters, so we all get massive.
That's that farm family.
Yeah, and so they all had. It's a Catholic family. That's what that is. and so they all had ex-wives and ex-husbands too. So really, it was like having 20 brothers and sisters. Because their exes all still came with like their new families. It was crazy. It's Alabama. Get over it. So we would all show up and we would do the Dirty Santa, and I can't imagine how pissed off they must have been as adults, because there were a lot of times where like the kids got the good gifts because they were freaking crafty, man. And you got to watch out, man. And so sometimes these kids would go home with some baller presents, and you'd have some grown man over there with a coffee mug or a nutcracker or something. He's like supremely upset.
Oh man, that's fun. It's fun.
I think the most hot item one time, it was like a Dale Earnhardt memorabilia type of thing, and people are going to come to blows over that in my family.
My family would get along with your family.
Yeah. My uncle has a whole wall dedicated to Dale Earnhardt decorative plates and clocks.
Oh yeah. That's still
one more Christmas game that I heard about. I heard about it over the break. I was talking to a friend of mine, and his wife's family, they're a little bougie and rich apparently. They hang ornaments on the tree, like the glass ball ornaments or whatever, and they put money in them ranging from like $100 to $1,000, and they hang them all over the tree. And it's you get to pick, you get drawn at whatever random order, and you go and you get to pick an ornament off the tree, so you have a chance of getting, and it may be like a wider range than that, maybe $1 to like $1,000 or something crazy. But anyway, they put money in these ornaments, and you can go pick an ornament off the tree, and you open it up, see how much money you get. And this guy was telling us, it was in a group message, he was telling us about all this. He goes, does anybody else's family have anything like this? I was like, dude, we were lucky to have a dollar bill and the plastic egg in Easter.
That was the money egg. That was the gold egg.
That was the golden egg. You got $1 when you were 7 years old? Come on.
Yep. Yeah, you would shake the egg, and if it didn't make a change sound in there, you knew you had some money. you knew how to bill.
You think that 34-year-old uncle was mad that he got the nutcracker and you got the Swiss Army knife? Imagine how mad he'd be if the 7-year-old got the $1,000 right. And he was sitting over there with George Washington staring him in the face.
Right. They're probably the same family that give cars for Christmas as gifts, like in the commercials.
Those families aren't real.
I was never able to relate with that.
They made that up. No doubt.
Never came out to the driveway with something with a bow on it.
Yeah, and I do love that one GMC commercial where like she gave him a his and hers watch, and he's like, "Oh, I got us something." And he walks out, his and hers Denali's out front, and she runs over and takes his truck from him. I die every time. But nobody's buying 2 Denali's at Christmas. What are there, like 0.01% of people that have ever done that? Get out of here.
I'm sure there's some out there, but they're very few, and
they're not concrete people.
they're not listening.
Yeah, they don't sell Acti-Gel.
No, sir.
But speaking of Christmas traditions, I've become gladly accustomed over the last decade to enjoying Christmas with Acti-Gel competing for national championships. And
You said Acti-Gel.
Did I? Well, hey, that too. Actually, now I'm thinking about it.
You could restart that if you want.
No, I actually, I like that I messed up. The University of Alabama is competing for a national championship on January 11th. And so but the next time that we have conversations in front of these microphones, I hope that we are national champions, and I'm celebrating on the graves of Ohio State.
I got to be honest with you, man. I mean, I'm always going to root for the SEC given the opportunity, but I've never been more of an Alabama fan in the playoffs because, one, I hate the fact that Notre Dame even made it in, especially over Texas A&M. I hate the fact that they're perpetually overrated.
Trash team.
They're perpetually overrated, and whenever they get the opportunity to prove that they're not overrated, they prove that they're overrated every single time. But, hey, as long as ESPN is still putting the games on television, Notre Dame's going to be there. Given the opportunity.
Well, at least I know who's not ever going to sponsor this podcast. ESPN. Love you. I did just cancel my ESPN Plus subscription yesterday.
So. Good for you. And then secondly, I don't like Ohio State that much either. Actually, I don't think anyone does.
No, especially this year.
The first national championship where most of the country's actually rooting for you.
Hey, that wasn't very much.
I wouldn't go that far.
Can't be the lesser of two evils. I mean, is there any fan base? Look, people want to give Alabama fans a hard time, but I mean, really, is there any fan base worse than Ohio State fans? They've got to be the worst. Oh, you had to think about it.
That depends on who you ask.
Oh,
I hate Florida so much, though. So it's kind of Florida's at the top of every worst list imaginable for me.
I feel like if like on a national basis, people that just aren't around Florida fans very much just don't understand because Florida fans don't travel like an Ohio State fan. I feel like you got more of those spread out around the country. But
what about Texas fans when they were good?
I don't know. It's kind of just now.
Yeah. They win one mid-tier bowl game. Hey, we're back.
Yeah, they're the other UT.
Oh man. Well. Good luck. Good luck to the Crimson Tide. I'll be rooting for you for sure. I'm also like a closet Nick Saban fan. I think he's a dude.
Goat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm nervous about the game because anytime like one team is heavily favored or the other, and I don't know if you guys are paying attention, but
what is the line?
I don't know, but it's more than it should be. And last time I looked, it was 7.5.
Ooh.
But yeah, it was a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it came down. But you look at the award circuit, and our wide receiver won the Heisman. He also won the wide receiver award.
It's Maxwell.
Bolitnikoff. But he also won the Maxwell, which is most outstanding player. And then our QB won the Davey O'Brien QB award. Our left tackle won the Alvin Trophy. Our center won the award for that. I'm pretty sure our running back won the Doak Walker. We won everything. And that makes me super nervous.
Usually doesn't work out.
Never works. Never works out. So nervous.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, if there's one coach that can keep the rat poison reporters away from the players.
I think Jalen Hurts used rat poison in an interview with the Eagles.
Really?
With a reporter after the game. I could be mistaken, but I think he did. And I'm just going to imagine that he did. I really liked it.
All right, boys. Well, we made it into the new year, and all traditions and holiday gatherings aside, let's get into the podcast and start talking a little bit about concrete. What's piqued your interest? What do you got your mind on as we head into the new year?
Joey had something interesting. Go ahead, Joey.
Yeah, we're talking about traditions. We can keep going with the tradition that we've had on this podcast of talking about things that reduce CO2 emissions and also strange things that you put in concrete. So we'll just keep that going with this article that I found. It's talking about putting wood waste in and mixing it with recycled concrete. and basically making concrete out of it. What these guys at the University of Tokyo are doing, they're taking ground up pieces of concrete. So they're taking recycled concrete and they're making it down into a powder. I don't really know the gradation. I don't know if it's as fine as, cement, or if it's like a manufactured sand, type of product, or what's really going on there. So they're grinding this up. They're grinding up this concrete, mixing it with water, and they're adding lignin that comes from wood waste. And the lignin is actually what's binding the concrete particles together. So the lignin is acting like it's cement. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It didn't really go into what they're doing to this wood waste, or what kind of wood waste, or I didn't really get into any details about that, but I just thought it was pretty interesting that they're taking, two recycled products and they're making concrete with it. Usually we talk about, recycled concrete aggregate. We're talking about manufactured sand, or we're talking about, some kind of fiber that's made out of whatever material that's maybe a byproduct or a waste product. But in this case, they're making concrete out of all recycled material, which I just thought was pretty interesting. And they're saying it has more bending strength than regular concrete. So I guess it's flexible, which may be good in like high winds for skyscrapers, or I don't know what they really have planned for this material, but it seems like it has good flexural strength. And I thought this was interesting, but I don't really know what the plan is with this. It says because of the lignin in the concrete, the actual concrete could biodegrade after it's discarded. So I don't really know if they're gonna spray this stuff with some kind of sealant to keep, to preserve that life, or what the plan is for this concrete material. So that was just something I thought was pretty interesting. And at the end of the article, they say that adding wood waste to cement and mortar made the concrete more stronger and watertight. So it's pretty cool things that they're doing with wood waste and concrete over in Tokyo.
Yeah, it's not unheard of for lignin sulfonates to be used as additives in concrete. That's been done before. The issue becomes supply and variability. Mm-hmm. So as long as somebody can buy a consistent product, and then it's almost like a basic technology where things have advanced so far that people really just got away from it. Mm-hmm. But it's cool to see the researchers are going back and saying, "Hey, this may have been done before. It may be old, but we could refresh it. Could bring it back into the 21st century and make it viable as a renewable resource."
Yeah, and I don't ever anticipate it like completely replacing concrete construction or anything like that. But it's just, they're using two byproducts, or they're using two products that would otherwise just be discarded, or whatever, and they're just making concrete out of it.
No, it is cool. I mean, it'll have application somewhere. Yeah, you're right. It's not going to take over the ready-mix market, but it's got application somewhere. That's awesome.
I'm just interested to see what that recycled concrete looks like when they start mixing it up with this lignin. Like I said, they kind of hinted in the article that it was more like a powder, or something fine like that. Maybe they ground it down to a sand. So I don't know. It'd be neat to see some more research done on it, see a quote unquote mix design for this stuff, because they just talk about water, recycled concrete, and lignin. And that was the three ingredients that was in this mixture. So I don't know if it just looks like a cement paste when it's all done, or if it looks like, like flow fill or something like that.
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. I'd have to see it. In person. But I mean, they make these geopolymer cements now that allow you to make concrete with just any kind of trash sand or anything you want, and they do their best. But again, it's all about consistency. These new products, it's very, very. I'm talking to the choir here on this podcast, but for the audience out there, you guys know it is very difficult for new products to enter into the concrete market, and so you've got to show consistency, lack of variability, and constant technical expertise. As long as you can add value through each of those stages, then you got a chance to survive. And so whether it's a geopolymer cement or a lignin-based recycle aggregate ground thing, or you're putting wind turbine blades in the concrete, whatever it is that you're trying to do, it takes time. It takes time, and it's tough. And it's exciting though. It's exciting to look at it start. And a lot of times it starts in a university setting, and then maybe 20 years from now. Unfortunately, that's how long it takes for some of these technologies in this industry, right? It could take easily 10, sometimes 20 years for things to really get a hold in some kind of market. Maybe not dominating ready mix or dominating cement, but you maybe get your foothold in maybe they find a great place in architectural precast or something.
Well, speaking about eliminating variables and improving consistency, that's a good segue into our guest. He's a volumetric guy with Coastal Gunite, Marcus Vanderhoffen. We know him from the American Shotcrete Association, and he's been all around the country, heck, maybe even all around the world, and he'll get into that here in this interview. Making concrete with all types of different materials and different sources and in different applications. But we'll get into all that and the variables and how he deals with all those variables and how he deals with it on the volumetric side of things. With the equipment that he uses and the company that he works for. So without any further ado, this is Marcus Vanderhoffen with Coastal Gunite.
We'll go ahead and get started. Marcus, thanks for coming on with us. It's always a pleasure to talk to somebody else from ASA. We had Mason on here. He was our second guest, I believe. And so maybe here in the future, we'll have a bunch more ASA guys, and we'll see where the future takes us after this episode. But Marcus, tell us about what you do, company you're with. I know this, but just kind of bring us into what you do currently in the company you're with.
So I'm with Coastal Gunite Construction Company. I've been with them about almost a decade now. I'm originally from the West Coast. I've been in the shotcrete industry for the past 25 years. Had a good run out there. Company got bought out. I knew the ownership of this company and have been out here ever since.
So with Coastal Gunite, what kind of work do you do? Is it a lot of underground, or do residential, civil, or what do you do?
So I'm the COO, a big name for really the glorified firefighter and estimator and multitasker. We operate pretty much on the East Coast. In the what we do a lot of underground from culverts to shavs and stuff like that. We have another division that we like to call our bridge division, and we'll do gunite, but more substructure repair in general, metallizing, pile jackets, anything to do with the work that's underneath the bridge deck. And but when it comes to shotcrete, we'll look at everything except pools. Tell Mason that.
We'll leave all that up to Mason. Then he's got that covered. Yeah. Is there a reason for that? You just don't want the headache, or is?
Believe it or not, the pool industry is, it's not easy. You visit us; they're a part of the ASA, and we give the pool guys a hard time. But the reality of it is that it's not an easy business to be in. It's very competitive, and doing it right. To be honest, I couldn't take some of my crews and just go out and be in the pool business. I have built pools in the past when I was on the West Coast, but the group that I'm with now, it'd be completely foreign to them. So there's not this just because you're a shotcreter crossover to being able to do that type of work.
Right, that's understandable.
And Mason, you can tell Mason again, I actually respect the pool industry. I didn't badmouth it.
We'll save the bad mouthing for after we record. Then you can speak freely about Mason.
There you go.
So you said you do gunite. Is that are you running meter trucks? Do you do some bag mixes? What's the operations there?
So we do both. And for those of you not in the business, and I'm old, it used to be gunite and shotcrete. Shotcrete was the word for wet mix. shotcrete, and gunite was the word for dry mix. Mm-hmm. So when we were running dry mix operations, believe it or not, we'll go all the way back to site batching, where we're using volumes in a bucket and breaking bags, to using a volumetric truck, pre-bagged mixes. There's a lot of cool stuff out there in some of the bag material, some rapid set cement, some stuff that is part of the industry. But we do it for, we'll scare people and show up with an old M3 double chamber gun, and it's got levers and contraptions on it. People look like, what? It's like it should be on an old steam engine or something. It's so we do it all, man. It just really depends on the situation.
Yeah. I think the gunite and shotcrete terminology is something I picked up from ASA pretty early on when I started hanging out with you guys, and I guess I brought that to AMI where we work, and everybody now, they know when I say gunite, I 99% of the time am referring to dry mix shotcrete, so to speak, or the dry mix process. And then when I say shotcrete, they immediately think, wet mix, either delivered by ready mix or even metered, but it's, wet mix. So that was something that interesting that I learned early on from ASA. And we'll stick to ASA. What was your initial roles, or what was your initial involvement in ASA, and where'd you go from, or what brought you to where you're at now?
See, here I go. I'm going to date myself again. I'm actually member number 50. I'm one of the charter members when the ESA was put together back 1998, 99. It's on my wall somewhere over there. But I got brought in by a man named Larry Totten, and he was president of Johnson Western Gunite, which was also a shotcrete company, not a gunite company, to be honest. So I got brought in at the very beginning, where the first goals of it were to put together the NOSMN certification and try to get some more legitimacy to shotcrete as a whole, and spread that around. I've always been involved in the ACI also, but ASA was a way where we could be more focused to promoting the industry than just putting together documents, to specs and that type of stuff.
Right. And for everybody that doesn't know, that's listening, the ASA stands for the American Shotcrete Association. That's the organization we're referring to. We came on board as members in 2013. So we've been involved for several years now, and I've got to meet Marcus and Mason that we've referred to, and there's been a great many others that have been pivotal to the direction and future of that organization. What do you see for the future of ASA and for maybe shotcrete in general? Is there a certain thing kind of brewing up in the shotcrete industry that you think is going to really make an impact on people using more shotcrete or change the way that you do things?
Well, shotcrete's always been kind of said as a separate term or a separate word to concrete, but people that have been in the industry have always known that it's just a method of placing concrete. It's not an actual different thing, which just recently, for those of you guys know about the ACI, and 318 is the overall concrete god. I mean, and they finally have decided that shotcrete is concrete also. And so basically what that means for a lot of the people out there that, I talk to engineers and different people all the time and go like, well, what do I have to do different for shotcrete? How's it different? What's the design difference? And the bottom line is that there's no difference. It's from the design world and what you think concrete is shotcrete is concrete. And, we could talk about making rebar configurations and some stuff different to make it a more shotcreteable situation, but from a design perspective, it's been accepted. So that's a huge thing, a huge barrier that the industry has spent the 20, 25 years I've been in it trying to get over. And it should really help the industry.
Yeah.
Marcus, you talk about how now shotcrete is concrete and concrete is shotcrete, like you just said. But in the general overall ready mix market, there's a lot of things you can do to get creative, for better or worse. Sometimes it works in the adverse, but I mean, you're talking there's lightweight aggregates and there's all kinds of different admixtures that are being thrown around, and people are getting more and more, should I say, quote unquote, creative every day. But there always seemed to be, at least to me anyway, a difficulty in getting too creative or too involved in a mix design, especially on a dry gunite process as it pertains to water reducers and accelerators and different types of aggregates and gradations and so on and so forth. Is there a way to overcome some of those shortcomings, or would you argue that it's almost more beneficial to keep it simple in a way with the limited amount of bin space you guys might have?
The years that I've been doing it, Joey's got some great stuff that he's working with. A lot of the things that have grown from plasticizers and water reducers and air entrainment and stuff, it's all stuff that we utilize exactly the same. I mean, there's things, obviously when you're dealing with a dry batching situation versus wet mix, you're talking about powders, you're talking about some different things, but we got workarounds all the time of putting it in the water and doing some stuff. So I see all the innovation to concrete in general in the thing to really be 98% of it applicable to what you can do with shotcrete. The hardest part is that acceptance in those rules. And one of the things that, like, I work almost solely in the public works type of stuff. So I'm doing hard bids with people that don't want to talk about it. They're kind of set in their ways. They have an idea and they don't want to be first. But the market, the private market is a little bit more open to hearing stuff that's going to be solving their problems. And so, if you wanted to ask me how to get to it, I would get to more engineers that are in that, solving division. People in the private market want it done. Their time, they don't, if you can give them something that's going to get them a better product for a better price, they're more apt to listen.
Absolutely. We found that ourselves. Now, we've got some friends in Canada, and now normally I'm not looking for the United States to model other countries, but in this case, it may behoove us to find out exactly what they're doing, because our friends in Canada are forecasting that the shotcrete market is going to explode on the East Coast. It already is doing pretty well over in British Columbia, and they think that technology is coming over to Ontario and Quebec. And what they're forecasting is that the application of shotcrete, applying concrete, casting it in place via the shotcrete method, is going to explode. And they're selling this successfully to the A&Es and to the project manager, the general contractors, and saying, hey, we got a new sub. Yeah, I mean, you could do crane and bucket for this, or you could pump this all this way, or however it is you're going to cast this in place. But there's another way to do it. There's another way to apply it in this shotcrete. So I don't know, Marcus, if you're familiar at all with how they're selling it, but they think they're successful with it, and they think it's going to explode.
All right, now I'm going to give you the old school version. The wet mix shotcrete and subterranean work's been going on since the 50s and 60s, but the real change came in the 70s with the advent of the Sidewinder pump, swing tubes. Basically, the horsepower and stuff turned what used to be dry mix and used to be hard to do into very doable on the West Coast. And I started in 95, but I can tell you in the 90s, in late 80s, that 98% of your substructure parking garages, from regardless, were built shotcrete method from Seattle down to LA. And that technology, that is, or it's not technology, it's just people. I'm now on the East Coast. People don't see it so much on the East Coast, but that migrated basically from California up through the state of Washington and into Vancouver, BC. And I'm from Seattle originally. And so, I saw it going up there, and then it kind of moved some more laterally across Canada. But it's, that basement work is just not as prevalent on the East Coast. You can, Joey's probably looking around it all the time, but it's, they are starting to get it, but it kind of still shocked me when I came across the country that, hey, these guys aren't doing this on a regular basis. And I'm like explaining to something that to on the West Coast, they go like, huh? No, everybody does it that way. That's, it's not even thought of. So I hope more of the stuff. I know a lot of Canadians myself. We've got a lot of involvement in the ASA from those guys. And I hope that, more and more people just understand that it's got to be about the money in one way, but it's the effective way of doing a lot of one-sided form situations of placing concrete. And everybody goes like, well, how thick? Hey, I've done walls that are 48 inches thick. I've done walls that are 6 inches thick. I've done, it's really, it's a lot more vast than people expect or understand.
Do you think the reason for that is that the guys in the East just haven't heard of it yet, or are they just set in their ways and maybe have heard of it and just don't know how to do it properly? Or do you think what's the reason for that?
I think that probably the availability of contractors that really know that industry has been different for them than it was on the West Coast. I mean, there was decades of groups in Northern California. We had an office in San Leandro, which is a nice way of saying Oakland, LA, and Seattle, and there just was a lot of people that understood it and were doing it, and that I did not see that as regular out on the East Coast. Now, some people have brought it into Manhattan and some other places at a bigger scale, but I just think it was something that they weren't used to. And the other thing, which is kind of funny, because I live down in Florida now. Well, the whole state of Florida's got all these buildings, but they don't go down. And your limits of space and how you have to build buildings and how you utilize it. I mean, we were building 7-story underground parking structures in Seattle in the 80s, and in Florida, hey, if you go down 1 story, that's like a milestone around here. They've still got some property. So long and short, I think it's just what people were used to for a long time. I don't think that they, it's not like you don't know, but it's just not the way you do things. So.
Yeah, you think ASA will have a part in that? Like, I know ASA is continually educating more and more folks on, the benefits of shotcrete in somewhat, quote unquote, conventional construction. It can be utilized a lot more places. Do you think ASA is going to have a hand in that?
I think they help in that. I mean, the bottom line is that you can get on that website and you get involved in it and see that it's a very legitimate operation, and you're not breaking new ground. People, that's what scares them the most. It's like, well, hey, I'm not really all that interested in trying something new on my $30-40 million project or $200 million project. I need something that's proven. And if anything, the ASA, with their magazine and the rest of the stuff, Joe, where you can see, hey, a lot of guys are doing this every day. Look at stuff kind of like the rock carving thing, and it really came to pass for me on the West Coast 15 years ago or something. Became quite popular, and now again it seems to spread out, and people realize, whoa, you can get a really good looking project, and that started in like the zoo industry and other things, and then came part of what's going on in highway work and other stuff. So it's constantly growing. You just got to keep helping people try to get comfortable with it and know that hey, they're not having themselves exposed by putting shotcrete and stuff into their job.
Yeah, that's interesting that Joey asked, is ASA going to promote it? Because I'm not as familiar with the inner workings of that organization as he is, and I do know that the NRMCA, when they have a targeted focus, like right now, they'd like more roads to be paved using concrete rather than asphalt. So they designed an actual promotion strategy, and they've got their marketing and they got their sales pitch, but they've also got a person. Like they've got like a guy or two that like this is your. Actually, I think there's females on that staff too, so I don't want to just say guys, but they've got a team, and their only goal is to go out and spread that message and trying to convince these A&Es, these project owners, to switch to concrete paving. So I didn't know is there a person or a team inside of ASA that has that same kind of function, and could they help spread that message?
We kind of started years ago. It was always been to promote and expand the use of shotcrete, and about I think is it 3 years ago that we did the director thing and became kind of our own entity. I mean, now we're not really part of using the ACI program or other ones. We have our own technical director. Our staff is growing. Our technical director is my age, so I can pick on him a little bit. That now we're learning more of the social networking and other ways to promote things. I'm so old that I'm pre-website. I'm pre-computer, pre-website. And I remember explaining to my boss 20 plus years ago that I don't want any of these phone books around here that you sending up here. We do this stuff on the internet. I just got a high speed, I was the first guy with a DSL line. And so, and he would try to race me and go, and I could find it in the phone book faster than you can find it with that, computer thing that you got. And so it's all kind of grown at the time. And now the ASA has always been there to promote the use of it, but we're getting better, I think, at showing our stuff on social media, and we're putting people in the group that do that kind of thing that are familiar with it. So
I know it was brought up that, and it's been mentioned before by, I think Bill Drakely has mentioned it a few times, and a few other guys in ASA, about needing some young blood in the organization to take on leadership roles. And I think Mason has done an excellent job of that. Mason, I think, is maybe my age. He may be a touch older, but he's really taken it by the horns. And I think is he chair of the pool and rec committee now? Or I know he's taken some leadership roles within ASA, but was there a push like by the ASA to get more young people in there? Like, was there an organized push for that?
I've always been, I'd like to say that I was trying to be part of that. I've always said that we need to have new people and fresh faces and have a thing. When I first started the ASA, some of the guys, some of them are gone up now, but there was just really this old guard that were doing their thing and were set in their ways. And when I first joined the ACI was pre the ASA, and when I first joined up, I don't know how old I was, but they pretty much wouldn't even talk to me. I mean, I remember the first time that the chair of the specification, ACI 506 specification, said hello to me. It was probably 10 years after I had been attending. He like said something to me, like recognized that I was a human being or part of this thing. And I've always said, and I'm thankful for guys like Mason, young people involved, and Mason's in line to become, one of an ASA president. I'm a past president. That was about a decade ago, but I think that it's super that he's coming along. He's got some other guys, Ryan. He's outspoken. Sometimes people aren't that comfortable of getting in there, but we're finding more and more people, and I think that we're turning the corner on that. Of seeing that you'll see another generation that's been in this business, participate a lot more at the ASA.
Yeah, I noticed Ryan Oakes is who you're referring to. He jumped in feet first when he came on ASA. I remember first seeing him at a meeting, and the first time he was at a meeting, he was getting involved, and he knew the questions to ask. He knew how to answer questions, and he's done a phenomenal job down in North Carolina. building his business. We're trying to get him on here too, because I know he's
What? He's not on yet? At least I'm in front of Ryan. Good. I'll tell him that I'll badmouth him a little bit. He ruffled some feathers when he first joined up, but that was good. That's what I liked about him, that he he had his business. It's obviously he cared a lot about it, and he wanted to participate. And that's hard to do sometimes. Some people don't want to participate. They want their name on a committee or do some stuff. And Ryan's not like that. And I remember him, saying he was doing some stuff, and some of the old school guys, including myself, said, "No way." And he got a little bit out. We were, of course, not that we ever had a cocktail late after any of those meetings or any of that stuff goes on. He meant to me that he was kind of bent out of shape. Somebody, called him, and I said, "Well, I was one of those guys, Ryan. I called you on it. All you got to do is do what you say, and if you believe it, don't back up. Don't get upset about it, because I feel like that was a lot of how it was for me coming in. That I got a lot of, well, who's this guy? Who does he? What? How does he think he's somebody to be in there? And you got to break through. So I'm glad for Ryan. I'm glad for Mason. I'm glad for a lot of the people that care about the industry and are willing to speak up about it.
Ryan also he's won some awards through ASA at the annual banquet for some of his projects. I know you and Coastal have won awards as well. What's a unique project that maybe sticks out among all the other ones that you've done?
Oh, I got two of them that kind of stick with me forever. Years ago, I did the Washington State Capitol Dome, which is the fourth largest dome in the world, I think. I mean, so pumping wet mix shotcrete back then, people were still saying that you couldn't do it very far, and it was hard. So I ended up doing the upper part of the dome and pumping through about, which is nothing now, about 675 feet of slick line that I had to weave through stairwells and get up. The building was still occupied, and got up there. And at the beginning, the guys were saying, "This has to be done dry mix. You can't do this, blah, 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 blah." And I remember sticking to my guns and saying, "You're wrong. This is the way to do it. This is how we do it now. And if you want to encase big steel, this is how it's happening." And I put felt like I put my neck out, and we got it done, and it worked quite well. The second one to me was the Experience Music Project, which is also in the state of Washington, in downtown Seattle, which was about 100,000 square feet of Frank Gehry design. So if you look at the building on the internet or something, you see this sheet clad metal stuff that's all over the top, but underneath that is a undulating roof, crazy blob, I don't know what you want to call it, of 5.5 inch thick shotcrete shell. So it's a structural thing, never been built before. People really didn't know how to do it. I came up with a stupid idea at the beginning. I wish I would have charged for it, but I kind of said, we can put mesh over this thing, so you got something to hook to, a heavy mesh that you can walk on and you can hook to. And there was kind of areas where you could land stuff, but I said it's going to create a safety net that you can always use. And it's kind of like doing a big paper mache job. And then I said, well, yeah, but you can't shoot on that. So then I'd take a heavy screen, like a screen door material, and tie it on there. And then now the shotcrete's not gonna, you might get a little bit of penetration, but you could build this, and you got a decent forming system. And it was pretty much with a couple of guys, just like we're sitting here today. Only the one guy was vice president of Magnuson Engineering, and another guy, and they were like, all right. So same thing. We built a test panel, had a bunch of naysayers, a bunch of people saying this is never going to work. Because one of the things is that shotcrete, you want your steel to be rigid, and everybody's always afraid of movement. But my concept was, so as we load this thing up, you're going to get deflection, you're going to get movement. But if the steel, the rebar, and the form load in unison, that they move together, that while we place it, it's still going to work. And luckily enough, turned out to be right. We did this mock up and they cored it and went like, dang, guess it works. And I'm not sure they had another way to do it. They probably going to accept it anyway. But those are the two ones that, again, it's kind of nice to be in those situations where people haven't done something and it's naysayer and you're a little nervous yourself, going like, I hope I'm right, that we can do this, and then it works out in your favor. So,
Marcus, that's like the first 5 years of working at Active Minerals for us.
I was thinking the exact same thing. If I had $1 for every time I was on a job site, unsure of how it was going to turn out, I'd own this company.
Well, just remember, when you get some of those victories, if I had to go back, I'd go like, doggone it, couldn't I have charged for some of that? Now I walk in and go like, I can figure this out. I'm not going to tell you.
Marcus, correct me if I'm wrong, or kind of elaborate on my point here. Both wet and dry, the shotcrete gunite industry as a whole, they tend to be more innovative. They tend to think outside the box more. They tend to be less like the old guard that says, well, we can't do it that way because it's never been done. And they tend to just innovate more and try to be on that cutting edge. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, one of the things is that in pumping concrete, especially low slump concrete, how it was for a while, it's always been, like a more difficult pumping situation. So, and as you get outside of your box of your local area, aggregates and materials and different things changes. And that's a thing where your product is really advantageous, that you can walk into a situation that's got some marginal. I mean, you have to deal with what you have. I can't bring in aggregate from the Pacific Northwest that I'm used to all the time and do a job in Colorado or Florida or whatever. So you get these, you have your aggregate sources that you're going to deal with, and you need to figure out ways to make that work for you. And that's the great thing about a lot of the additives, that makes a unpumpable situation, an unwinnable situation, doable without making the mistake of just adding cement. I tell you, for years and years, the whole thing was well, just add another sack to it, or just add another sack to that, and everything's going to work out for you. And true, eventually you'll get it through the pump, you'll get it to work, but there's a few other problems, as you well know, that all of a sudden a 10.5 sack mix or 11 sack mix got a few other problems. I mean, I don't know what all this cracking's about and all these other things that are going on, but so I'm happy with those guys. I wish that I could help out in more situations where it was out of my control of a proven mix design. But I think once you get more strength too, with certain ready mix people solving problems, and a lot of that, it goes on. But it's that QPL list and all these things. Everything's got to be on. Personally, it drives me nuts too, because you guys can have a great product. I can go like, hey, I can solve this problem for you in 2 seconds. Well, it's not on my QPL. And I'm like, well, no, it's not, because you don't know. You're not part of the leading edge. And so keep plugging, man. Keep out there in I wish it could say over my lifetime it's got easier, but I feel a lot of times I'm still walking into the same room I did 25 years ago, going like, hey, we got answers, we got ways of solving this, and they're looking at you with the deer in the headlight look. So
yep, the more things change, the more they stay the same sometimes. But you did hit on something that I'd like to kind of touch on for our listeners that may not be as well versed in shotcrete and gunite. You mentioned the differences of materials and how you'll go to one region of the country, heck, even a region of a state, and your sand and your aggregates, and they'll be different enough to where they'll present different challenges within a mix design. With your company now, can you elaborate on, I guess, the region in which you work, how far you'll travel to a specific job, and then different parts of where you may go to work, and if those raw materials change from point to point, and what issues they present.
I'll tell you, you can have it change in a place you've been working in a 100-mile radius for the past 20 years. Sand sources and their gradation, and again, with low slump concretes and stuff, a small gradation change can really make a difference in the pumpability. You all know, and Mason be a good example of that. I personally operate in 20 different states, and I've worked from Seattle, Washington to the Keys in Florida, and up to New York to Buffalo. So I've been around and see a lot of different things and worked with a lot of different places. And, now I've got adept at the first thing that I do when I'm outside of my box is take a look at their gradations. Go like, hey, send me what sand you got. What's in your pile right now? Just tell me how that's breaking down, and I'll put that and chart that and kind of look and go like, this is probably where I need to be to have a close to pump, a good chance at this pumping. And the better I see those gradations go like, man, there's not a lot of holes in that. That's going to work good. It usually works. But sometimes, even with people you've been buying from, they get a different load of sand in. You were pumping yesterday, you're pumping, today, and the third truck comes with some new ag in it or whatever, and boom, you're not pumping. First thing out of their mouth is, well, there's something wrong with your pump. I can't pump this stuff. Like, well, I'll put another pump in line there, and when it's plugging in the reducer, you can pretty much say, hey, we've had a change in that. And to your guys's, I know I've talked to Joe a few times, but I know that Mason had been in some situations where, hey, without your guys' stuff, it was boom, it just stopped. The second he run out, it was his fault. He run out of your stuff, and his day was over. But it's huge, and you need to, I personally like to be able to bring different things to, other than just put more cement in it and create some problems.
So I've got a question. You're talking about looking at the gradations, and you were saying it almost sounded like you said you were plugging them into something to get a look. When you're saying you're looking at the gradations and the cement content and the water content, you're saying, oh, this is going to be fine. Is that just an experience thing, or do you have a program you're using? I'd love to find more about what you're doing.
I got to give Mark Jolene, Canadian guy. I don't like to give the Canadians. You said Canadian. I don't like to give any of those guys credit, but Joey's familiar with Mark. He's been in the ACI and the ASA since day one of my involvement, and he's a professor that works at a Laval University in Canada, and has done an incredible amount. He's a shotcreter. I don't say that about guys with PhDs too often, that they're a shotcreter. That's a plus. But he's a shotcreter, and he said a long time ago to me that so if you look at your highs and lows of each one of your gradations, so you've got a chart in there. Now I just use a simple spreadsheet for it, and so you need to stay between the lines according to the rules. It's got to be from here to here to here to here. But the bottom line is a little bit more important than staying in between the lines is how you mix it. It's going to come out in a shape of an S within those lines, and the straighter that you can make that, regardless of what you think about 75-25 or 70-30, say I'm talking sand to larger aggregate, coarse aggregate, and stuff. When you mix those together, the less bounce off of each side, the less holes that you got in it, the better chance you have of pumping good. Mark Jolin told me that and gave me the spreadsheet probably a decade ago, and I kind of said, yeah, sure, right, whatever. And then I started, because I'd move around, I'd have to pick make a new mix design. People weren't that familiar when I was in places, and I'd take a look at their aggregate and I'd go like, dang, it seems like doing like a 65-35 is about right, or maybe 8119, I found that these piles of rock were definitely not the same everywhere. And when we were mixing up, your aggregates for a mix, that if I used that chart and kind of made it so that it wasn't bouncing off of one side, it might be a little bit outside the lines, but it was a straighter line, that when you don't have holes in it, it doesn't take up cementitious material. That's what fills those holes, and you get a lot more utilization, correct utilization of your cementitious materials. So what I go like, well, that makes sense to me, because whenever it was screwed up, what do? We just stick more cement in there and start filling up holes. But there was another guy. That was another thing that's great about the ASA, is that you have people, very knowledgeable people, and I'm brain farting on the gal's name because she hasn't been there the last couple of times, Joey, but she wrote a paper on it talking about that type of utilization of cements, and not to go over the top, because if you go over the top, now you're asking for shrinkage, you're asking for other problems that are inherent to that. So what you want to find is the right amount of cement with the aggregates. You can actually refine that more. And I started going down that line, going like, all right, you PhDs, you might have something going on here in figuring that out. But that's where that came from. I stole it.
Good. Joey might have to steal that from you, and I'll steal it from him.
Ain't a problem. I won't make claim to it. I put my name on it though, or something, so you guys got like
put a watermark on
it. Tell Mark. I don't know where it came from, Mark.
It's probably a bigger challenge for you in Florida too, because as we've learned, none of the sand in Florida hardly meets ASTM C33, graded concrete sand. It's almost all outside the line. So I can definitely see where that would come into play for you. But I think it would be a tool that would be very useful for us, because we're doing a lot of pumping with the Acti-Gel product. And what we tend to find is that the Acti-Gel is making the mix more robust, so that you can use some of these aggregate gradations that maybe aren't the straight line. You got a very curvy S, and it sort of straightens it out for the Acti-Gel is almost straightening it out for you, saying, all right, it's okay. You can be a little curvy,
filling in those gaps.
It's filling in the gaps, man.
But we've got a ways to go in our own education in that regard. So any tools you have, man, send them over, dude. We'd take them.
The thing is that it's a lot different than, when I first started, like I said, it was, we'll do 75% of that, 25% of that, and 8 sacks of this, and have at her. And in fact, my boss at the start was like, well, use 7 sacks, and if that works, then stay there. If that's not working, maybe we'll spend some more and put it into it. Was more, there wasn't much refinement to it. So I'm down, and this was kind of shocking to me, and maybe you guys will find this out too. And I'm down in Florida, and the first time I was making some wet mixes, which I don't do that much anymore, but I made some down here. I used that method. I found that this was out of it's up in Jacksonville. I found that it was really what I would consider using a lot more of the larger aggregate, whatever. I mean, it was outside of like, Mark, you sure this thing works, this calculator thing? Because this doesn't seem right. And so we went and did some trials, did some tests in the yard. And I actually turned one of my other project managers onto it, did this, and it pumped great. And I was like, wow, there is something to what this guy's madness was on there. And the strengths came up phenomenal, like 9,000 PSI out of a wet mix thing. Nothing else, but I don't even know if I had 8 sack mix. That was, about 800 pounds of cementitious. And I'm going like, wow, I can't believe that was right. Now, one of the things that turns out to be different, and I've argued this before, and I don't know where Acti-Gel works in this situation. The boiled absorption, the actual absorption of the material, was still so tied to the aggregates that it was horrible. So they did the tests, and it was like, I forget what our Canadian friends. I'll pick on the Canadians because I know a couple that were big pushers of, but they said it should be around 6% on your boil absorption, and I'm at like 9. I mean, there's not a whole one there. I mean, I got great strength. I got great consolidation, beautiful gun barrel holes out of the test panels, and I'm not even close on that absorption. Maybe that absorption, is really going to have some play in its long-term durability, but that's not something that I can deal with there. But I'm arguing the fact that there's not a lot, but some of the members of the ASA were talking about, well, if it's got that, you're not doing your shotcrete right. And I'm like, brother, I'm doing the shotcrete portion of it right. This is the limitations of the local materials, and you have to assess that. If local materials aren't going to work, or there's another way around it, I don't know what kind of testing you guys have done to see what the up and down is on those things. But, all our stuff out here in the marine environment, from silica fumes and other things, is, about what you can do with the permeability and keeping salts and keeping nasty stuff from getting to the steel. So just another one of those things. You just kind of live and learn. In Seattle, I'd be the opposite. I would have been, 75, 78%. I got a mixed design I used up there for 15 years with 705 pounds of cement, 40 pounds of fly ash, 75-25 on sand rock, 6,500 psi in 28 days, all day long, probably in just a couple of days, all day long. And with that granite rock and stuff up there, nothing getting through it. You go to Portland, not anywhere that far. Go to Portland, and those guys go like, that ain't gonna work down there. So it's all over the place. You got to be able to fix what they got.
Well said.
Yeah, that's a great tagline. You got to be able to fix what they got.
That's well said. I'm
more of a half full guy. I like it. The glass is half full. It ain't half empty. I think that for us in our particular industry, having 318 validate it is, another way to do is just going to open some more doors. I can't give away my secrets of where I work and what's going on well, but I have certain jurisdictions that their acceptance is growing, and that's my goal, is to get other places. I never wanted to be like a shotcrete bragger that's saying, well, the impact is the difference and all that. I can place concrete with, especially in the repair industry, with your highest level of bond to the substrate, more economically than you can do it any other way, and have it be a very durable, long lasting. I'll put it up against any other system that you want to do. So why am I having to argue that? Why do I have, well, you need that formed and poured? I'm like, well, if you want it to be less than what you would get with this method, you cannot. I always go with the bonding agent stuff. You can't stick glue in between two layers of metal. When you want to something to be together, you got to weld it. It's got to weld together. You can't put a layer of stuff and be anything better than what that layer of stuff is. And I'm always going, I've got a core that sits on my desk somewhere around here that is 100-year-old substrate material with shotcrete bonding, and you can feel it. I've handed it to engineers all over the place that you can't tell me that there's a bond plane there. You can't feel it, you can't see it, and it doesn't break at it. When you pull it apart, it breaks in the substrate. So why would you want less? And it's kind of blown me away over the years that I got to sit there and argue. And another thing, I just got to say it for, on behalf of the ASA and all of it, that, they put a lot of time into that, and also explaining that 90% of your failures and your problems are from not doing it correctly. They really are. And you could do that with concrete too, if you want to look around and find, you do a crappy concrete job, yeah, it doesn't work out for you too well. And there's no difference in the shotcrete industry. If you don't do a good job on your substrate, you got no chance of having a good project. And if you don't, wet it down. I'm another one of those guys that really argues, well, it needs to be saturated surface dry. And I'm like, you can't get it too wet. On a vertical soffit, you cannot get that wall too wet or have too much. The second I put the dry gun in or a wet mix gun, the impact stuff's going to get rid of any surface water that was there. I'm not telling you to shoot underwater, but don't let it dry out. Don't worry about having, oh, well, is that surface just right? Take your hose and sit in front of it and hose it down in front of you and shotcrete right behind it. You're not going to have a problem. You're going to have benefits from that. So,
Paul, Josh, you got anything else before you let Marcus get on with his day?
It was a pleasure, Marcus.
It was.
All right. Hey, man. Thanks again, Joey. Thanks, guys, for pushing the word on the shotcrete and the stuff that you do. So y'all have a good one, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on. If you ever want to talk hunting or anything else, you just call me.
All righty.
Thank you, Marcus.
And that's going to do it for episode 12 of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast. One final thanks to Marcus for being such a great interview. We had a great time, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Tell your friends about us, and be sure to subscribe and give us a rating wherever you get your podcasts. And be on the lookout for the next one. That'll be episode 13 of the Add 10 Gallons Concrete Podcast, and it'll be available middle of January and the end of January. We'll be sure to get you guys at least one more podcast out before February rolls around. I'd like to give a shout out and a big thanks to our presenting sponsor. That's Acti-Gel 208. Make sure to check those guys out at actigel.com. That's ACTI-GEL.com. Also, some of the stuff we talked about at the beginning of the show in the current event section, make sure you check those links out. They will be in the show notes. So, until next time, y'all be good.